and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brittany of BrittanyJJones.com, and I'm here with another Sew With Me video. Today's video is in collaboration with the Royal Wedding Sew-Along. It is sponsored by McCall's and Simplicity Patterns. I am one of the 5 bloggers that is sewing along for this challenge, and my pattern is Butterick 5850. I love this dress. I think it's really perfect for a nice wedding or any spring occasion that you may have coming up soon. So I'm going to be sewing along again with view A for this pattern. If you didn't know, over on the blog I am doing weekly posts of this pattern. Last week for week 3 I started with steps 1 through 6. And those steps are just your reinforcing stitches, your darts for the front and back bodice, as well as your stay stitching and ease stitching for your pattern. So I'm going to be starting this tutorial off on step 7. So if you have yet to go ahead and start your dress, head on over to the blog for steps 1 through 6, and then come back and meet me here, and we're going to pick back up at step 7 through 11, and then we're going to continue with steps 18 through 25. Just so you know the fabrics that I'm working with while I am sewing along, I am using cottons. I'm using these as my muslin. This is going to be my outer fabric, and this is going to be my lining. So you will be able to distinguish easily between the two in the video. For size, I cut out the 16 for the upper part of my bodice. However, I graded it over to the size 20 around my waist area. If you want more on that, head over to my blog and check out week 2 of the Royal Wedding Sew-Along. I went through my sizing as well as adjustments that I made to my bodice. The notions that you will need to complete this pattern: you will need your coordinating thread, but you will also need one 14-inch zipper. So once you have all of your pieces cut out, make sure you transfer all of your markings. They're very important, and especially when we need to reinforce certain areas on our pattern. So make sure to transfer all of your markings, and once you're ready, we can get started. Alright everybody, so before we get started, I just want to remind you again that I already have my steps 1 through 6 sewn. Right here you can see my front bodice pieces. All of my markings are transferred. My reinforcing stitches is already done. I've already clipped to the circle. I've also already sewn the center back together as well. I've done the darts on the front, and I also done the darts on the back. So now we're going to be starting at step 7. Okay, so now we are going to align our front bodice and back bodice right sides facing. We are going to begin pinning at our neck edge as well as our shoulder seams. So you should have transferred to markings, 2 dots. They should be lining up. So go ahead and begin match up all of your markings that you transferred and begin pinning in place. Once you have it all pinned, you will take it to your sewing machine, baste it in place first, and then you're going to stitch it. When you get to those corners, make sure that you pivot your needle and then continue stitching all the way around. Alright, so once you have it all sewn, it should look a little something like this around your neck and shoulder seams. You can go ahead and give it everything a really good press. Before we move forward though, we do want to trim off some of that neck seam. So go ahead and grab your scissors now and let's trim. Once you have it trimmed down, take it to your ironing board now and press your shoulder seams open flat. So go ahead and do that now. Okay, so once we have that all complete, you can go ahead and sit your fashion fabric to the side and go ahead and grab your lining, and we're going to construct that the same exact way as we did the fashion fabric. So go ahead and sew your darts, go ahead and transfer all of your markings, do your reinforcing stitches, stitch at the center back on your front bodice. Go ahead and do the exact same steps that you did to the your fashion fabric. Do those to your lining now. Once you have the markings and darts complete, you also want to go ahead and stitch at the neck and shoulder seams the same way we just did in first step 7. So go ahead and do that for your lining as well. Alright, once you have your lining the same exact way as your fashion fabric, you want to lay them right sides facing. Now we're going to move on to step 8, and now we're going to pin the lining to the bodice. We're going to stitch around the front opening, the neck edge, and we're also going to stitch around our arm edges. So let's go ahead and pin those together now. I'm going to begin pinning at my front opening and my neck edge, and then move on to my armholes. Once you have them all pinned, go ahead and take it to your sewing machine and sew them down now. All right, so now I have my front opening sewn, my neck edge sewn, as well as my armholes sewn. So before we move forward, we need to make sure we do understitching along our armholes. And to do that, you're only going to stitch your seam allowance to your lining, not your fashion fabric, only to your lining. Now, it may be easy for you to sew your armhole and then do your understitching and then go and sew the front opening if you feel like you won't be able to go all the way around. Sew your armhole first, do your understitching, and then sew your front opening. Our next step is to turn our lining and fashion fabric right side out. So go ahead and pull your bodice right side out. Now I'm just pulling the fronts through the armholes to the back. So go ahead and do yours the same exact way, and then go ahead and give everything a really good press. Once you have it pressed, the next step over in step 9 is to sew invisibly along your fold line, and you're going to baste along the stitching lines of the large circles. But first, let's go ahead and talk about this sew invisibly, and you may have to go ahead and transfer your fold line over if you can't see it anymore. I had to do the same thing, but I'm going to give you a close-up of what I did as far as sewing invisibly. You won't be able, you want to sew so that you can't see the stitching on the fashion side of your fabric. You can see it on the lining, but you shouldn't be able to see it on the outside. That is the way I understand sewing invisibly. If you know a different way, please feel free to leave it down in the comments below. But this is how I did it. I just poked the needle through to the right side. I gathered up just a little piece of fabric, like maybe 1 or 2 threads, and then pulled it over through to the lining. So that way you really can't see it on the fashion side of my fabric, but you can obviously see it on the inside on the lining. So that was my understanding of sewing invisibly. Again, if you know a better way, leave it for me below. So now once you have that sewn invisibly along your fold line done, you want to run some basting stitches along your fold lines. So I am just making my lines a little bit better so you can see them. So now I can baste along those stitching lines. Now that I have them basted, you should have yours basted as well. The next step is to bring those lines together so we can make our pleat on the inside. So again, just bring your stitching lines that you just basted, bring those together. I'm going to grab a couple pins, and first I'm just going to stick through one line till I can pin it through the other one to make sure that I'm exactly on my stitching lines. So you can go ahead and pin yours in place. Once you have it pinned, go ahead and stitch between those large circles now. So now I just made my pleat, and I went ahead and I pressed it down facing the neck edge of the bodice. So the next step is for us to turn this stuff facing along the inside, along that fold line, and then we're going to slip stitch that over the neck seam in place between the small circles that we transferred. So go ahead and grab your needle and thread and begin to slip stitch it down now. Once you're all done with your slip stitching, go ahead and baste across the ends like I've done here. All right, so now we can go ahead and set our bodice to the side for just a moment and grab our ties. For our ties, we are going to be creating a narrow hem along the long edges as well as the diagonal side of our ties. This is an option if you have some really lightweight fabric and you don't want the wrong side of your fabric to show, because since we are doing a narrow edge hem, the wrong side of your fabric will show. You may not want that. You may want to cut out 2 more of the tie pieces and sew them together and then flip them out so that you won't have any wrong side showing. That's also an option. I do want to stress to do a muslin on that first though, because it may be a little bit too heavy for your fabric. So always just test that out to see if that's something that you want to do, or you can just stick with the narrow hem like the pattern instructions suggest. For the video though, I'm going to try out the method of doing it with doubling up on it so we won't have the wrong side of our fabric showing. So if you have extra fabric, extra muslin, go ahead and cut out 2 and we can start that now. So now I'm going to put 2 pieces right sides together. I'm going to sew down the long side, the diagonal side, but I'm going to leave the side with the markings open. Alright, so I have my ties sewn, they've been flipped out pressed, and I put gathering stitches between the small circle and the square. So now we can go ahead and grab our bodice, and with right sides together, we're going to pin one tie in to each side of the front bodice. We're going to be matching up the small circle and square that we should have transferred. Now we are only going to be working with our fashion fabric, so make sure that your lining is out of the way. What you want to do is pull up the gathers. Adjust your gathers. Again, find the small circle and square that you transferred, and we're going to go ahead and line those up right now. So go ahead and find yours, line it up like I'm doing here. Once you have everything lined up, go ahead and start pinning in place. Now I am working on my right side of my bodice. For the right side, you're only going to baste it down. However, on your left side, we are going to stitch across the tie ends, as well as stitch again 1/4 of an inch from the raw edge. Alright, so now that we have our ties attached to our bodice, again, we only sewed the fashion fabric, we did not sew the lining. Alright, so working on the right side only, we're down on step 21. We're going to open out the lining at the sides. We're going to stitch the bodice and the back together, so match up your fashion fabric and your lining fabric and stitch in one continuous stitch. Now that we have our right side down, we're going to move on over to the left. You want to put your pieces together in the same way. However, you're only going to stitch between the large circles that you transferred. So go ahead and put pins there and stitch there. So now I have mine stitched. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to clip the seam allowance to the large circles. Don't clip through it, just clip to it. So now from here, we're going to turn the lining down, and then the fabric that we pushed out where we snipped at, we're going to baste the side opening below that clip and raw edges together. So go ahead and pin yours together and let's baste it now. Alright, so once you have the raw edges basted together, you want to go ahead and gather the lower edge of the bodice front between the small and large circles. So go ahead and gather those up. You can go ahead and pull those gathers, and you want to lap the right bodice over the left, matching up all your centers and symbols. Adjust the gathers to fit. Go ahead and pin in place, and then you can baste that together. Alright y'all, our bodice is now complete. Thank y'all so much for joining the sew along. Be on the lookout for the next videos for sewing the skirt, attaching the zippers, and our other finishings. If you are joining in on the Royal Wedding Sew Along, be sure to use the hashtag so we can all see your progress, and join the Facebook group. Lots of inspiration from other makers who are taking part in this sew along. Until next time, blessings y'all. Bye.